Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Dr. English Channel podcast. I'm David, and today we're diving into a topic that has shaped leaders, thinkers, and everyday people throughout history. It's the idea that you become what you think. It sounds simple, maybe even too simple, but the impact is massive. And of course, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Anna. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, David. And honestly, I'm excited for this topic. This idea, you become what you think, has been repeated in philosophy, psychology, spirituality, neuroscience, and personal development. It's powerful, but a lot of people either misunderstand it or underestimate it. So I'm looking forward to breaking it open today. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe our channel. It helps us a lot.
Absolutely. And to everyone listening, grab your coffee, tea, or whatever fuels your brain. Because for the next couple of hours, we're going deep into how your mind shapes your reality, how your thoughts influence your habits, your identity, your confidence, your direction, and ultimately, your life.
Let's start with something really simple. David, do you remember the first time you heard the phrase, you become what you think? Because I remember being really young, hearing something similar like, your thoughts create your world, and I didn't believe it at all.
Yes, I think my first exposure to it was in a book when I was in college. I was stressed, overwhelmed, trying to figure out my life, and I came across this idea that your dominant thoughts shape your behavior, your habits, and your self-image. And I kind of laughed. I thought, so what? If I just think I'm confident, I'll suddenly be confident? It felt unrealistic.
Exactly. It feels too magical, right? Like positive thinking alone can change your life. But that's not actually what this concept means. It's not about wishful thinking. It's about the idea that repeated thoughts form beliefs, beliefs form identity, and your identity drives your actions.
Right. You don't become what you imagine randomly. You become what you repeat consistently in your mind. If you constantly think you're not good enough, you start acting like it. You avoid opportunities. You shrink. You apologize for existing. But if you think, I can grow, I can improve, and I can figure this out, your actions shift.
And your brain shifts too. That's the fascinating part. Neuroscience confirms this. Repeated thoughts create stronger neural pathways. So if you constantly think negative thoughts, those pathways get stronger. If you think empowering thoughts, those pathways get stronger. It's literally rewiring your brain.
Which means every time you think, you're building a version of yourself. And the scary part is, most people never think about what they think about.
Yes, they just let thoughts run wild like untrained animals. And then they wonder why they feel anxious, insecure, or stuck. If you don't take control of your thoughts will control you.
Let's talk about examples because listeners love hearing real situations. Anna, what's a moment in your life where your thinking created your reality?
Oh, I have a good one. When I started my first job, I had this belief that I was not smart enough. I don't even know where I got that idea. But every day I woke up thinking, I'm probably going to mess up today. Guess what? I did mess up constantly. Not because I lacked ability, but because I was operating from fear. I was trying to avoid mistakes instead of focusing on doing good work.
That's so relatable.
But then a mentor of mine told me, you're not performing poorly because you're incapable. You're performing poorly because you believe you're incapable. That hit me like a train. So I started telling myself every morning, I can learn, I can improve, I can handle what comes my way. And slowly, my behavior changed. Then my performance changed. And soon my boss trusted me with big tasks.
So you didn't change overnight. Your thinking changed first, and your results followed.
Exactly. The mind leads, the life follows.
I had something similar. When I first started podcasting, I thought, why would anyone listen to me? I felt like an imposter. I kept imagining people judging me. So I spoke quietly, I hesitated, I rambled. But then I realized if I keep imagining the worst, I'm creating the worst.
Yes.
So I started imagining something else. I imagined one listener, just one, who needed to hear something encouraging that day. I focused on speaking to that one person. And suddenly, everything flowed. My confidence grew, and the podcast grew with it.
That's a perfect example of how thought impacts identity and performance. Let's dive deeper into the idea of identity, because this is the real heart of you become what you think.
Yes, most people try to change their lives by changing their actions, but actions come from identity, and identity comes from thoughts. If you think, I'm lazy, you will act lazy. If you think, I never stick to things, you won't stick to things. But if you change your inner script, your actions begin to match it.
It's why people say, tell me your thoughts and I'll tell you your future.
Exactly. You can't outperform your own self-image.
Let's talk about something many listeners struggle with: negative self talk. Those little statements that play in your head like, I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I always fail. No one believes in me. I'm not attractive. What's the point? These thoughts may feel small, but repeated thoughts become identities.
100%. And here's something powerful. Not every thought you think is true. In fact, many of your thoughts are simply old programming.
Yes, just because you think it doesn't mean it's reality.
Thoughts are like clouds. They pass by. But we treat them like mountains, immovable and permanent.
So true. And people attach meaning to thoughts instantly. You think, I'm bad at conversations, and suddenly that becomes a personality trait.
And then you behave according to it. You avoid speaking. You become shy. But what created that behavior? A single thought repeated hundreds of times.
Let's talk about the power of focus, because what you think is influenced by what you consistently focus on.
Yes, if you focus on problems, you see more problems. If you focus on opportunities, you see more opportunities.
The mind finds what it looks for.
It's like buying a new car. You never noticed it on the road before, but suddenly you see that car everywhere. Your mind simply pays attention to what you highlight.
So if someone keeps thinking life is hard, their mind collects evidence to prove that life is hard. But if they think life teaches me and I grow from it, their mind collects different evidence.
Let's do something interactive for listeners. Right now, wherever you are, listening in your car, at home, or walking, think about something you want to become. A skill, a mindset, a version of yourself. Just think about it clearly for a moment.
Now, notice what feelings arise: excitement, fear, doubt. Whatever comes up reveals your belief about yourself. If you felt fear, it means your thoughts are telling you maybe you can't. But the moment you shift that narrative, everything opens.
This is why affirmations exist. They're not magic, they're repetition. They replace old thoughts with new ones.
Exactly. They train your mind the same way you train muscles.
I want to talk about something deeper now, how thoughts affect behavior through emotion. People don't act from logic, they act from feelings, but feelings come from thoughts.
Right. If you think I'm going to fail, you feel anxious. If you feel anxious, you avoid taking action. But the root was a thought, not the situation.
when you think empowering thoughts, you generate empowering emotions. Confidence, courage, motivation, they're all byproducts of thought patterns.
This is why morning routines, journaling, meditation, visualization, these practices matter. They set the tone for your thinking.
You choose the direction of your mind before the world chooses it for you.
That's a good line. Say it again.
You choose the direction of your mind before the world chooses it for you.
I love that. Now that we've covered how thoughts influence identity and behavior, I want to talk about something most people don't realize. Your internal dialogue is actually a conversation between you and your future. Every thought is like a vote for who you are becoming.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Most people think thoughts are harmless mental noise, but really, they're instructions. They tell your brain what to pay attention to, what to feel, and how to act. If your thoughts are constantly negative, your brain becomes conditioned to expect negativity. If they're hopeful, your brain looks for possibility.
And here's the tricky part. Thoughts feel automatic, but most of them are just habits. They're patterns you've repeated for years, sometimes since childhood. Maybe a teacher told you you weren't good enough. Maybe someone laughed at you. Maybe you failed once and never tried again.
Yes, and your mind recorded those moments like a camera, then replayed them again and again until they became beliefs. But beliefs aren't facts, they're simply thoughts you've rehearsed.
Exactly. And once you understand that, you realize you can rehearse new ones. You can build a new mental script.
Let's talk about something practical. What happens inside your brain when you change your thinking? Because this is not magic, it's neuroscience.
Right. When you think a thought, neurons fire. When you repeat a thought, those neurons connect. And when you constantly repeat a thought, that connection becomes a pathway. It becomes easy for your brain to think that thought again. So if you repeatedly think, I'm not confident, your brain actually becomes better at producing that thought.
And worse, at producing the opposite thought.
Exactly. But the moment you introduce a new thought, like, I can become confident, you start building a new pathway. It's weak at first, it feels fake, but every repetition strengthens it. Over time, it becomes the dominant pathway, and the old one fades.
This is why people underestimate self-talk. They think it sounds cheesy, but really, it's mental training.
Athletes do it, entrepreneurs do it, artists do it, students do it. Anyone who wants to perform at a high level trains their mind before they train their craft.
Let's do a quick demonstration. Listeners, think about something you struggle with. Public speaking, confidence, discipline, learning English, anything. Now notice the automatic thought that appears when you imagine yourself doing it.
It might be something like, I always mess this up, or people will judge me, or I'm not good at this. Those thoughts feel natural only because they have been repeated. But imagine replacing that thought with, I can improve, or I can handle this, or I'm growing every day.
Just changing that thought will slightly change how you feel. And that slight emotional shift can change how you act. And repeated action creates a new identity. This is why your thoughts matter. They are the starting point of every transformation.
Let's talk about obstacles, because a lot of listeners probably think, well, my mind is just negative. That's how I am.
Yes, but Your mind is not a fixed object. It's a tool, and tools can be sharpened, refined, and trained.
Negative thinking is not your identity. It's a habit.
Let me share a personal story. When I was younger, I used to jump to worst-case scenarios. If someone didn't text me back, I assumed they were upset with me. If I got feedback at work, I assumed I was in trouble. My mind was constantly trying to protect me from fear by imagining danger everywhere, even when there was none.
That's such a common mental pattern.
One day, a friend told me something that changed my life. They said, "David, your mind is acting like a smoke detector. It keeps going off not because there's a fire, but because it's overly sensitive." And that hit me. My mind wasn't trying to hurt me, it was trying to protect me, but it overprotected me to the point where it held me back.
That's powerful. And I think a lot of listeners can relate. Your mind wants safety, not success. Safety means staying the same, avoiding risk, avoiding discomfort. But growth happens in discomfort. So your mind actually fights the very change you need.
Exactly. And that's why intention matters. When you intentionally choose empowering thoughts, you override the default fear-based programming.
Let's talk about a common misconception. People think positive thinking means ignoring problems. But actually, it means approaching problems with a mindset that helps you solve them.
Yes, positive thinking isn't everything is perfect. It's, I can handle whatever happens.
It turns you from a victim of circumstances to a creator of outcomes.
Let's dig into how thinking affects relationships, because the way you think doesn't just influence your personal success, it affects how you treat people.
Definitely. For example, if you constantly think people don't care about me, you will behave in ways that push people away. You might close off, avoid vulnerability, or misinterpret someone's actions.
I've seen that so many times. Someone expects rejection, so they behave defensively. And then when people respond to that defensive energy, they say, "See, nobody likes me."
It becomes a self-fulfilling cycle. But if you think people are generally kind and I can build great relationships, you show up differently. You smile more, you open up, you connect more.
And the world responds to the energy you project. You become what you think, and your relationships become what you think too.
Let's talk about thinking and opportunity. Some people think opportunities never come to them, but often the opportunities are there, they just don't believe they can take them.
That belief blocks their vision. One person sees a challenge and thinks, "This is too hard." Another person sees the same challenge and thinks, "This is my moment." Same situation, different mindset, completely different life trajectory.
I want to bring up identity statements because they are incredibly powerful. Statements like, I'm the kind of person who keeps promises to myself. I'm the kind of person who learns from mistakes. I'm the kind of person who grows through challenges. These shape your behavior deeply because they define your identity.
Identity statements are like code. You write them in your mind and your actions follow automatically. This is why highly successful people don't just think about what they want to achieve, they think about who they want to become.
Absolutely. They train their thoughts to match the identity they want.
Let's shift into something emotional, how past experiences influence your thinking. Sometimes your thoughts aren't negative because they're logical, they're negative because they were formed during painful moments.
Yes, A person who was embarrassed once might create a belief like, I'm terrible at speaking. A person who was rejected might create a belief like, I'm unworthy. But those moments were experiences. They were not definitions.
And your thoughts can update your past, not change what happened, but change the meaning of what happened.
You can tell yourself, that moment taught me, instead of that moment broke me.
You become what you think, even about your past.
That's deep, and it's true. Your past doesn't define you unless you keep thinking it does.
And your future doesn't wait for you, it waits for your thoughts.
Beautifully said.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Dr. English Channel Podcast. I'm David, and with me, as always, is the wonderful Anna.
Today's episode is going to hit home for so many people because we're talking about something incredibly common. I understand English, but I can't speak. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe our channel. It helps us a lot.
Oh yes, this topic is basically the story of millions of learners around the world. People listen to English, watch movies, understand TikToks, follow English YouTubers, and even understand their teachers. But when it's time to speak, silence, or panic, or a brain freeze.
Exactly. It's like the English is inside their head, but it refuses to come out. And what's interesting is that most learners think this problem is about vocabulary or grammar. They tell themselves, I don't know enough words, or I always make mistakes, or my grammar is terrible. But the truth is, that's usually not the real issue. Most people already know enough words to speak. Their grammar is good enough to communicate. The problem isn't knowledge, it's something deeper, something psychological, emotional, and habit-based.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to explore today. Why you can understand English perfectly well, but freeze when you try to speak. And more importantly, how to fix it.
Let's start with the biggest reason. You've practiced understanding, but you haven't practiced speaking. It's that simple. Many learners spend years studying grammar, reading textbooks, doing exercises, and watching videos. All of that improves comprehension, but none of it trains your mouth to move in English.
Right. It's like listening to people play piano for 10 years and then expecting your fingers to magically know how to play. Speaking is a skill of the mouth, not just the brain, and skills require repetition, actual physical repetition.
Yes, people don't realize that speaking is a motor skill. Your tongue, lips, mouth muscles, they need training, just like your fingers on a guitar or your legs in sports. If you never speak, your brain may know the words, but your mouth can't produce them smoothly.
This is why some learners freeze. The brain says, I know this word, but the mouth says, wait, I've never used it before.
And that gap creates hesitation, and hesitation turns into fear, and fear turns into silence.
Another big reason people understand but can't speak is they are afraid of mistakes. They think speaking must be perfect or native-like. So when their brain detects even a tiny uncertainty, it shuts down.
This perfectionism is deadly because children learn languages by speaking imperfectly first. They don't worry about grammar, they just speak. And every mistake becomes a step forward. Adults forget this. They try to think first, then speak, but thinking slows everything down.
Yes, thinking in your native language and translating into English causes a delay. And during that delay, fear grows. That fear makes you speak less. Speaking less makes you practice less. Practicing less keeps you stuck at the same level. It becomes a cycle.
Exactly. And this cycle is so common. Many learners tell us, I understand everything my teacher says, but I can't reply. That's because comprehension alone doesn't build speaking. You need speaking practice, not just listening practice.
Let's talk about another factor: passive learning versus active learning. Many learners spend years consuming English passively, listening, reading, watching, but speaking is active. If you don't actively use English, your brain tags it as input only.
Yes, the brain says, I don't need these words for speaking, I only use them for understanding. And your brain stores them differently. It's fascinating. Neuroscience shows that the circuits for understanding and speaking are related, but not the same. You have to activate both.
And the more you use English actively, the more your brain rewires itself for speaking. This is why speaking improves rapidly with daily practice, even for 5 minutes.
The next big reason people freeze when speaking is lack of automaticity. This means your English thinking is not fast enough yet. When you listen, your brain has time to process. But when you speak, everything must come quickly. There's no time for translation or analysis.
Exactly. Speaking requires quick reflexes. And like any quick skill, sports, dancing, driving, it becomes automatic only through repetition. You need to repeat phrases, sentence patterns, and expressions until your mouth produces them without thinking.
Yes, speaking should be smooth, not mentally exhausting. If you have to assemble every sentence in your head like Lego bricks, you will always feel slow and nervous.
And sometimes learners freeze because they have too much information in their heads. They studied too many rules, too many exceptions, too many textbook patterns. Their brain is overloaded.
Oh, yes. So many learners try to speak and then suddenly think, wait, is this sentence in the right tense? Should I use present perfect or past simple? Is this irregular? What is the right preposition? And by the time they decide, the conversation has moved on.
Exactly. Overthinking kills fluency.
That's why the most fluent speakers are not the ones with the best grammar. They're the ones with the least fear and the most automatic phrases.
Let's talk about confidence. Confidence is a huge part of this. People think you need confidence first and practice later, but it's the opposite. Practice creates confidence. Confidence is the result of speaking, not the requirement.
Yes, many people wait until they feel ready, but they never feel ready, so they don't speak. And every time they stay silent, they teach their brain speaking is scary, speaking is difficult.
But when you speak, tiny steps, small sentences, simple phrases, you teach your brain speaking is safe. I can do this.
Let me share a story. One of my students understood everything in English, but never spoke. In class, she stayed silent. In group activities, silent. In real conversations, silent. Not because she didn't know the words, she simply didn't believe she could speak.
What changed?
One day we did a challenge. She had to speak one sentence every day, just one, simple, short, no pressure. After 1 week, she was speaking in 2-sentence replies. After 2 weeks, she was having little conversations. After 1 month, she was confident. And after 3 months, she was talking more than the native speakers.
That's amazing, and it proves something important. Fluency grows when you use English, not when you study it.
Exactly. It's not about knowing, it's about using.
Another huge reason people understand English but can't speak is they don't speak English in real life. They only speak inside their head. They only speak in the classroom, or they only speak when the teacher asks. But real speaking requires spontaneous, natural practice.
Yes, real conversations are unpredictable. People ask surprising questions, they interrupt, they speak fast, they use different accents. And your brain needs time to adjust. You need real exposure.
The good news is, real speaking practice doesn't require native speakers. You can practice with friends, with other learners, with yourself, even with shadowing.
Shadowing is so powerful. You repeat what you hear instantly. You copy pronunciation, intonation, speed, rhythm. It trains your brain and mouth at the same time.
It also builds confidence because you hear yourself producing real English sounds, not translated sentences.
Speaking of translation, this is probably the biggest problem of all. Many learners understand English easily because their brain goes directly from sound to meaning. But when they try to speak, they go from their native language to English.
Yes, two completely different brain processes. One is fast and automatic, the other is slow and difficult.
Translation is slow, unnatural, and stressful. And if you translate every sentence, you will always hesitate. But when you stop translating, English becomes easier.
The goal is to think directly in English, to speak without mentally building every sentence.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to teach in today's discussion.
Welcome back, everyone. In part 1, we talked a lot about the reasons why you can understand English but struggle to speak it. Now let's dive deeper. In this part, we'll explore mindset, daily habits, and practical strategies, things you can start doing today to unlock your speaking ability.
Yeah, let's talk about real steps because people are tired of hearing just practice more. They need details. They need a roadmap, something they can actually follow, something that reduces fear and builds confidence little by little.
Exactly. And the first step is understanding this truth. Speaking is not a test. Speaking is communication. Many English learners treat conversations like exams. They check grammar in their head, they panic about mistakes. They think every sentence needs to be perfect.
Yes, and that's what stops them from speaking. Because in tests, mistakes are punished. But in life, mistakes are normal. They're part of learning. Kids make mistakes. Native speakers make mistakes. Even teachers make mistakes. But English learners think they must be perfect.
And this perfection pressure freezes the brain. So, rule number 1 for speaking is stop judging yourself. Stop trying to be perfect. The goal is communication, not perfection.
You know, people often think if my English isn't good enough, others will laugh at me. But in reality, most people don't care. Most people just want to understand you, and your English is usually better than you think.
Absolutely. I've traveled to over 20 countries, and I've had conversations with people whose English was full of mistakes. But guess what? I understood them perfectly, and we communicated. Communication always wins over grammar.
So let's talk about something crucial, speaking without thinking too much. Because the biggest enemy of fluency is overthinking. The moment your brain starts checking, analyzing, judging, correcting, you freeze.
Yes, and one powerful way to stop overthinking is to use formulaic language. That means ready-made phrases. Instead of creating long sentences, you use short, simple expressions that come out quickly.
For example, instead of worrying about grammar, you use simple structures like I think, I feel, in my opinion, for me, I'm not sure but, I want to say that. These phrases act like a bridge. They give your brain time to prepare the rest.
Exactly. When learners use ready-made phrases, they sound natural, confident, and fluent. And speaking feels easier because your brain isn't building everything from zero.
Another powerful technique is speaking while you think, not thinking first and speaking later. Most learners think silently, then try to say the sentence they prepared. But if you take too long, you lose confidence.
Yes, you should speak like this. Okay, let me think. I guess I would say maybe the best example is these expressions allow you to keep speaking while your brain organizes ideas. Native speakers do this all the time.
Exactly. That's why native speakers say, you know, like, they don't pause silently, they fill the space, and that keeps fluency flowing.
Another major strategy is shadowing, which we mentioned earlier. But in this part, let's talk about it deeply. Shadowing means listening to a speaker and repeating what they say instantly. No thinking, no translating.
Shadowing is powerful because it trains your mouth to move like an English speaker. It teaches rhythm, intonation, pronunciation, speed, and natural patterns. It also helps you think faster.
A lot of learners say, but shadowing is difficult. Of course it is. But difficulty is what makes it effective. And the more you do it, the more automatic speaking becomes.
Yes, and you don't have to shadow entire paragraphs at first. You can shadow short lines, even one sentence at a time. The goal is repetition, not perfection.
Another important technique is self-talk, speaking to yourself in English throughout the day. This is one of the most underrated strategies. You can practice anytime, anywhere.
Yes, you can talk about what you're doing. I'm cooking dinner. I'm going to the store. I need to wash the dishes. It sounds simple, but this builds fluency because your brain starts thinking in English for everyday situations.
And the more you think in English, the less you translate. And when you stop translating, speaking becomes natural.
Another powerful idea is micro conversations. You don't need long conversations to improve. You need frequency, small, daily bursts of speaking.
3 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes during lunch, 5 minutes before bed.
Exactly. Long conversations are great, but short conversations are easier to maintain. And the brain loves frequency. Repetition every day beats one long session per week.
Now, let's discuss something emotional. Fear of embarrassment. This is the biggest psychological barrier. People worry about sounding stupid, they worry about being judged, and that fear is stronger than their desire to speak.
But here's the truth. Nobody is thinking about you as much as you think. We all overestimate how much people notice us. Most people are busy with their own lives, their own problems, their own thoughts. They aren't judging your English.
Yes, and usually people admire you for speaking another language. They respect the effort. They appreciate the communication. English learners are often harder on themselves than anyone else is.
So one mindset shift is extremely important. Stop thinking, my English is not good. Start thinking, my English is good enough to communicate.
Because the moment you believe good enough, you speak more. And the moment you speak more, your English improves naturally.
Exactly. Let's talk about another big issue. Silent learners. These are people who listen a lot, watch a lot, read a lot, but never speak. They live in their head. They're comfortable understanding, not producing.
Yes, and silent learning is safe because it doesn't require risk. But speaking requires vulnerability. That's why silent learners plateau. They understand perfectly, but can't speak.
And the only way out is through discomfort. You have to speak, even if it's awkward, even if it's slow, even if your accent is strong, even if you make mistakes. Speaking grows through discomfort.
Which brings us to another point, accent fear. Many learners think their accent is bad, but accents are normal. Every person in the world has an accent. Even native speakers have accents depending on the region.
Yes. And having an accent doesn't mean your English is bad. It just means you're human. And your accent is part of your identity. You can improve clarity if you want, but you don't need to erase your accent.
Exactly. Confidence matters more than accent. You can speak with any accent as long as your communication is clear.
Let's move into practical solutions. What can listeners do every day to improve their speaking? One method is the 3-minute speaking rule. Every day, choose a topic and speak about it nonstop for 3 minutes. No pausing, no thinking, no stopping.
Yes, this trains fluency because you force your brain to produce English continuously. Even if you make mistakes, you keep going. After 1 week, people notice a big change.
Another method is daily phrase drilling. Choose 5 to 10 important phrases and repeat them out loud 20 times each. It creates mouth memory. Fluency grows when certain phrases become automatic.
And here's another great technique, role play. Pretend you're in everyday situations, ordering food, buying coffee, asking for directions, talking to a coworker. Act out the scene even if you're alone. It builds mental readiness.
And don't forget, record yourself. Many learners feel shy about hearing their own voice. But recording is powerful because it gives you feedback. You hear what you need to improve. You notice mistakes you didn't know you were making.
And over time, you hear improvement. That builds motivation and confidence. Speaking is a journey, and recordings show your progress.
Let's talk about consistency. Fluency doesn't require hours, it requires daily exposure. Even 15 minutes a day can transform your speaking ability in a few months.
Yes, consistency trains your brain. English becomes part of your daily life, not something you study, but something you use. This is where transformation happens.
Before we move to part 3, let's summarize part 2's big message. You speak English by speaking. You build confidence by doing. You stop translating by thinking in English. You become fluent by repeating daily.
And most importantly, you don't need perfect English to start speaking. But you must start speaking to become fluent.